this video tutorial we're going to see how to use a fairly powerful modifier called the Edit Mesh. Of course, first we need to draw something. I've drawn a sphere, and then under the Modified tab and the modifier list I can see there's a modifier called Edit Mesh. So let's click on that. Also, you might want to turn on your edges in your viewport if you haven't done so already. So let's click and turn on edge faces. That way we can see the edges of each segment of this sphere. A couple of little tips you might want to know about when you're modifying things. Right now, if you look in the modifier stack, you see we have the Edit Mesh, and then below we have the sphere. If you want to change anything about the sphere, you'll have to click on the sphere option in the modifier stack. Like if I want to make the radius, say, a little bigger, I'm going to make it 20. That's where I would do that. Or if we wanted to change the number of segments, maybe double it to 64, that's where we would do that. So you would have to click on sphere if the Edit Mesh option is highlighted in the stack there in your modifier panel. I'm going to reset my segments back to 32 for this demonstration. Alright, so I'm going to make sure I've clicked back on the Edit Mesh option in the modifier stack here, and then underneath you'll see there's a selection rollout, and there's 5 different selection options. We're going to play with the polygon selection option first. So what I can do is click on that, and then I can come in and choose a polygon. In this case it's a 4-sided polygon that's defined by the edges of the sphere. And then I'm going to use the Select and Move command, and then I can move this around to create all different kinds of shapes here. I can move it in or move it out to create a depression or kind of like an extrusion. There we go. So this is a pretty neat thing, I think, to play around with when you're trying to create like characters or different features for a 3D game. Alright, let's undo what we did with the Edit Mesh here. I'm going to click back on the sphere panel, and it's telling me there's a modifier that's been changed. I want to continue. I want to say yes. And what I'm going to do is change the number of segments like I demonstrated earlier. So we have smaller polygons now, so that when we edit the mesh and we use the Select and Move option, let's try this again. Edit Mesh, select Polygon, use the, there we go, Select and Move. Now you can see how we have a little bit more control of how much of the sphere gets moved around with the Edit Mesh modifier. Of course, we've played around with the sphere. Let's get rid of this sphere here. I'm going to have to click back on the sphere in the stack to be able to delete it. But let's say I've used a box instead. So I'm going to draw a little box here, and I'm going to define a number of segments. Let's go with 10 on each of the sides. Now when I apply a Edit Mesh modifier to the box, I can do the same thing to the little segments of the box that I did on the sphere. And you can basically do this with just about any shape, I believe, that you can draw in 3D Studio Max. Alright, let's play around with an extended primitive. Let's maybe try the oil tank. So here I'm creating an oil tank. What you may want to pay attention to in the oil tank is, of course, the radius and the height, but the number of height segments. And if we increase that, I'm going to go maybe with 10. You can see that it put more segments in our height there. And in the number of sides, maybe you want to increase that to give it a little more control. So when you use the Edit Mesh modifier, we can see what we can do to the oil tank. There we go. So again, play around with this with different primitives, standard or extended primitives, and see what kind of fun things you can create.